Welcome back to the 12-month video game repair challenge. This is episode 5. I'll cover the rules a little bit later, but let's jump right into some sales for the month. Alright, first 2 sales of the month. Got a Duke controller for 30 bucks with the replaced quick disconnect cable, and an Xbox with one of the controllers that I fixed that had new thumbsticks and replaced quick disconnect as well, and a new drive band for about 120. Awesome start. Just got 2 more sales of Duke controllers. Both of them have replaced quick disconnects, and I don't remember what was the issue between each of these. This one might have been the one that had the swap shell, but this one has a little scuff here that I can't get off, and some other random scuffs around the board, or I'm sorry, around the housing, and this really bright green quick disconnect. So this one was a little bit cheaper at about 28 bucks, and this one was 30. So awesome, more stuff sold. Hey, just had another controller sell. So this one had a little bit of damage on the bottom, where it was on the bottom of the housing here, a couple little small cracks and stuff, but it sold for about 28 bucks. And it also had a replacement quick disconnect. And yeah, another one gone. Also, here are the rules that I've set out for myself with the challenge. First off, no debt. I start with $0 and I need to repair and sell items that I already have to make enough money to buy new parts and new items to fix. The goal is $10,000 in sales by the time I'm done too. Number 2 is I have a maximum of 7 hours a week to do any testing and repairs. Number 3 is there's no cost for supplies and tools I already own. And number 4 is to share everything. 1 summary video each month until the 12 months are done. And here's some repair items I picked up to finish out some of the items I showed from the end of last month. So, got everything unboxed. Got another blue Game Gear that needs replacement caps. It also looks like it might have some corrosion issues because it's already popping out the top of this, so that might be fun to look into. But 4 kits for doing the capacitors on Game Gears, and then these beauties. Look at those. Oh yeah, these are all for original Xbox capacitor replacements, the main board ones. I'll put the part numbers and everything else in the description for these, but these are the main board ones, and these are the super capacitors that are used for the clock caps. If you swap out your 1.6 version motherboard clock caps, you will need a replacement. I only got 10 of these because I don't typically see a lot of 1.6 version motherboards, but wanted to make sure that I at least had a good amount. And I don't know, there's something about the green, the yellow green caps that just make it perfect to put into an Xbox. I don't know, these look gorgeous in comparison to some of them that are in the system now. So hey, just got a couple more packages in. So before I get into this one, finally got these in. The other Panasonic capacitors, these are for the 1.6 version motherboard of the original Xbox. And then we have this one. Picked this up, and it is a non-working copy of Starshot. So we'll check that out at some point. We'll see what it actually looks like. I'll test it and see what the problems are. This will be a good add-on. So I haven't done an N64 game in a long time, so this will be kind of a learning experience. Just got another little batch of stuff in the mail, things that I wanted to try out, see if it would work better for fixes or anything like that. These are actually kind of interesting. So I found out the Thompson drives for the original Xbox, you cannot really find any sellers that sell just the larger rubber bands for that drive. So I found this kit on Amazon that I believe it was like 50 of these, if I remember correctly, for only a couple bucks. And I wanted to see if I could find the right size in here. I'll let you know how that goes. Then I bought some additional wiring to do for patches on motherboards. A couple different colors available just to differentiate the different traces, but they're really small rolls in here, which that should be nice. This is pretty much the exact same stuff. It's just magnet wire, and you just trim up the end and you can use it pretty much right away. So that's that. Then I got some more Game Gear fronts. These are glass screens, and yeah, I've purchased these many times before. They have the logo on the corner here and on that side, and they typically look really good. They've got the nice sticky back too. So Then I picked up a solder sucker. This one had really good reviews on Amazon, so we'll test it out. It's got these little suction cup pieces that go on the end here, so when you hit the plunger, it actually sucks to the specific location rather than the plastic ones being cheap and garbagey. So this one's supposed to be able to be reused multiple times, so looking forward to trying out that. A dentist kit. So I normally use my little tweezers in order to get into small little nooks and crannies, so I figured, you know what, why not pick up an actual dentist pick set in case I need to uncover traces or potentially scrape out corrosion out of little holes and things. So I wanted to try this out and see if that would work out well. We'll see. Then I got this. Let me open it up really quick. And yeah, there we go. So these are little fiberglass scratchers or fiberglass pens. So I don't know if you twist the bottom or if it clicks. Pretty sure you just twist it. But people in the comments have been suggesting for copper contacts, for gold contacts, for pretty much any locations on motherboards that need to be scratched because they have bad corrosion or whatever issues they might have. People have been recommending these, and I wanted to test them out. They're pretty cheap. I'll put the price on the bottom here, but you get a 3-pack. They will wear down over time, and they do have a little tip on there, so it will have fiberglass ends, but according to everybody in the comments and some other reading I've done online, these are really good for cleaning up contacts and cleaning up boards, so there's that. And then last but not least, something that I've been needing for a long time. Let me open this one as well. Yes, it's actual solder mask. I've been using nail polish instead of the actual stuff for a long time, which is totally fine, but I wanted to actually try out the real thing. Now, it does cure in UV light, and I've got to think about if I have any UV light available here. I might need to put them outside, not 100% sure, but it at least comes with pretty much everything you see in the kit. A couple brushes, which who knows if I'll actually end up using these. I'll probably use this more often than not, just because, you know, why use the brushes? But hey, I got some actual solder masks, so getting a lot of new tools and things from all of the money that we're making from the video game repairs, which is great. And hopefully we can repair some more stuff in the future. Looking good. Let's get these items from last month that I ran out of time to fix done first. First up is the Xbox console with a Thomson drive that has trouble opening and closing. I searched online and it doesn't appear anyone really knows how big the drive bands are for each of the manufacturers. So let's fix that right now. The way to measure these bands is by laying them as flat as possible and measuring across the diameter, and it appears the smaller bands are roughly 35 to 36 millimeters in length. These work in the Hitachi, Samsung, and Philips drives. Now the Thomson drives have a larger band, and it appears it's about 55 millimeters for the correct size. Now someone quickly go update the Console 5 Xbox wiki with these numbers so they're available to everyone. Many sellers online only specify Samsung in the descriptions of the drive belts, and since I wanted to make sure I was getting the correct size, I bought this multi-pack from Amazon. These are meant for VCR or tape players, but are very similar to the bands needed in these disk drives. You'll notice the old versions are a little thicker though, so I can't say how long these new ones will last for, but at least it'll fix the drive for the time being. And here I'm testing it out, and it's working great now. On to the next one. Another one from last month with a broken trace on the motherboard. I bought the very flexible insulated wire pack that you saw before exactly for this repair. I figured that it would be perfect to use for this since it's super flexible and can be bent in any direction, so it doesn't get in the way of any of the mounting holes. But sadly, I think it had other plans. For some reason, this wire is very difficult to solder with and even tin. I thought it may have been my iron's tip after a while since it was a little dirty and I swapped it out, but still nothing. I tried a few more times but moved on to something that I also wanted to try, which was some 30 gauge magnet wire. Now this stuff worked perfectly, and I'll for sure use it in the future for more fixes. I was able to weave it in between all the mounting holes without any issues and secured it down with some Kapton tape. It solders really well once the outer coating is removed and holds a basic shape once it's bent too. Great stuff, and I would highly recommend it. Once I was done, I added a few more pieces of Kapton tape to the wire just to make sure it wasn't going to move at all and tested the connections. Everything tested really well with a multimeter, but let's test it for real now. And for the moment of truth, will the bypass patch wire fix it? Yes! It turns on now and has functional buttons too. This is great that it turns on now, but does it really work? I'm going to test the disk drive and make sure it's working as well. It helps to have buttons that can actually function in the front of the console now too. That just went in by itself, didn't it? Alright, let's see what the issue is with the tray now. The drive is looking pretty clean, so I doubt there's any dirt or debris issues. Also, you can't manually release this tray in the front like the other drives. There's a little lever you can move from the left to the right in the front that will release it instead. I don't know why all these need to be different, but they are. After playing with the open and close mechanism for a bit, I noticed there was a small copper sensor in the front that probably tells the drive when it is fully open or closed. My guess is that this is not contacting itself properly because the slide mechanism has a little slop at the end, and it doesn't appear to fully seat against the sensor. I'm going to clean it up a bit and see if that works first before diving into a larger teardown. I'd also like to send a big thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. PCBWay.com is a printed circuit board manufacturer that provides a wide variety of options for prototyping and assembly. And they've recently announced that they're able to print full-color images directly onto custom PCBs now too. They also have a few weeks left to submit your own design to their KiCad open source design contest. The contest page info is linked in the description, and be sure to check it out before June 2nd when the project submission time ends. All rules, submissions, and awards are listed there too. I would like to thank PCBWay for sponsoring today's video, and be sure to check out PCBWay.com for all your project's needs. Now on to some testing. So something I've noticed is the little contacts in here are probably just not connecting properly. I'm not sure if I need to bend those or potentially clean them a little bit more, but I've noticed when I hit the eject and then just slightly pull, very slightly on the side, it will not go back in. So here, it goes right back in because it hasn't registered that it's open, but if you grab it and just pull it out slightly, it's fine, totally fine. And it'll even go back in. Let me do it one more time here. Grab it and extend it completely, then it'll stay. So now that we know what the problem is, how do we fix that? Well, there's a gear in the way of me being able to access the copper pins, so let's start there. I'm going to mark the top of the gears with a little scratch, just so I know where to seat them back together. Then carefully pry up on the bottom while pushing in the clip at the top, and it pops right off. This was not as easy as it looks, just so you're aware. Now that's gone, there are two more clips holding the sensor in place at the bottom of the unit. Now I don't want to push this out completely because it has wires attached to it, but I want it out enough where I can get full access. So I popped the clips and pushed it up a bit so it's just loose. The connection points still look pretty clean, but I'm going to polish them up with a fiberglass pen followed up by some IPA just to make sure. Also, I'm going to bend them slightly backwards towards the open and close mechanism just to make sure they're contacting it fully too. I don't want too much of a bend, but I do want them to touch a little bit easier. Kind of like this. The only thing left to do is reassemble and test it. And it's working well. I tested it a bunch of times and the tray opens and closes flawlessly now. I'll get this one fully reassembled and cleaned up to get listed on eBay later this week. Awesome. This next one has some more DVD drive issues, but since I'm opening it up anyway, I might as well check on everything else. I'm making it a habit to remove every clock cap I see that is not from a 1.6 model, and this one was no different. But once that was yanked out, I noticed another larger issue. The main board caps are starting to rupture, and they will need to be replaced. Since the 3300 caps in the front are still good, I'm going to leave those in place for now, but the 1500 units close to the CPU will need to be removed. This is probably a perfect time to try out my new solder sucker. As I was heating each of the cap legs and applying a little new solder to them to loosen them up, I noticed that this process was going really slow again. Very similar to the insulated wire from before. These joints just aren't heating very well and I'm having a very hard time touching them up with a small bit of new solder. I tried using the solder sucker, but it just really wasn't working very well, and I went back to the tried and true solder wick. I was able to get some of the solder off the joints, but most of it just stayed in place. So I flipped over the board and heated each leg one at a time while wiggling out the old caps. This seemed to work pretty well, but it took longer than expected. Once I had them out, I finally realized what the issue was in this case. The solder on these boards must be lead-free solder or silver solder, which melts at a much higher temperature. I tried cranking up the heat, but still had a beast of a time to get these joints removed. I tried adding more solder to them. I tried adding flux. I even went back to using my original tip since I figured the larger surface area of heat might help, and this was still very difficult to remove. I eventually got them all cleaned up, but man oh man did it take a long time to do. If anyone else had any issues like this, please leave a comment down below because I'd love to know what you did to remove them. But finally, we can get into some reinstalls of the new Panasonic caps I picked up. By the way, these caps are recommendations posted by an absolute bossa nova named Nuckingfutz on the original Xbox subreddit. This guy had some amazing recommendations posted there and great information. I'll leave a link in the description to the full discussion if any of you are interested, as well as the part numbers for each of the caps that I used below. If you've done any through-hole installs at all, these are a piece of cake to finish up. Slide them in, solder them down, trim the legs to the proper length, and you're done. I know I've said this before, but I think the greenish yellow tint looks really cool on these boards. I've got to adjust these a little bit more on my next few installs so they're a bit straighter, but I'm still happy with the final product. Now on to the real reason why we're here. Remember, the disk drive's not working. I cracked open the housing and it was very dusty. So I did a quick cleaning of the internals and tested it out, but unfortunately it's still not working. I did a deeper cleaning of all its parts, including spraying out the little glass prism at the bottom of the drive and even using some glass cleaner on the eye itself. I was extremely careful with this and barely touched it, but I was able to get a little dust off of the eye and tested it again, but still it wasn't working. I looked up a few more tips online on how to get these Thompson drives working again and found yet another post by Nuckingfutz discussing this exact thing. Turns out the capacitors on the boards might be the issue why it's not working. What a shock. But what is a shock is how you can test for it. Let me show you. So here's what I'm going to try. We're going to heat it up with a hairdryer. I'll explain why in a moment. Alright, now, let's see if it loads. I kind of hope it doesn't, but part of me really wants it to. Same game, yep. And there it is. It's having a hard time. It's having a really hard time with it. Turns out if you heat up the caps and quickly test the drive while it's warm, that lowers the resistance in them and they end up working how they originally should. Then you also know they need to be replaced too. I set this one aside for now and I'm going to have to purchase some more drive cap kits, but at least I know how to test for it again in the future. And welcome to the future. I have another unit with the exact same issues as the last one and the same Thompson drive that is notorious for having problems. Let's try it again on this one. Same results as before. Sadly, another one to put off to the side. Oh look, a third one. And the test worked again. So 3 out of 3 testing in the same way is pretty good in my opinion. The real test will be when I swap out the caps on these boards and test them again. But unfortunately I'll need to wait until next month before those come in and I'll have enough time to install them. But interesting way to test for this issue going forward. On to the next one. So this one is an early model, but when I turn it on, it just won't turn off. Let's find out why. So when it says refurbished on a console, and they have a brand new label, underneath it says Xbox Game Console Tracking Label. Does that mean that it's from Microsoft that replaced this label, or is this a label from GameStop? Leave a comment down below. I don't really know which one's which, or if GameStop even did refurbishment like that, so let me know. Well, it just took off the hard drive, and that's not a good sign. In addition to the one bad mainboard cap, it's also very dusty and the clock cap is looking a little rough too. Let me go blow this thing out and get rid of all the dust first. Much better. The clock cap, bad, but what else is new? Let's swap out all 5 of the 1500 caps just to make sure and see if that helps the problem. I found trimming the ends of the old cap legs seemed to help with the removal too. I just cut them flush with the board and it's a little easier to wiggle them out of place. But removing the solder from the holes is still really difficult. As a reminder, if anyone has any tips on that process, please leave a comment down below. But I got all the new caps swapped in and they look great. But something was bugging me about the on-off button not working and I wanted to do a quick test of the bottom traces just to make sure there weren't any breaks. And I'm glad I did because I found a few issues. The other traces still seem to be in good shape, but the front one has a few voids in roughly the same spots as the first one I fixed. Also, the same process stands as before. Get out some magnet wire and solder it into one of the ends of the trace, weave it around and secure it in place with some Kapton tape, solder it to the opposite test point, and cover it up then test it. Or maybe next time test it first, then cover it up. But I'd say this board is ready for full testing. And it works great now. Oh, the satisfaction of another unit fixed. By the way, whoever owned this previously definitely played a lot of multiplayer Halo. Well, this one should be an easy fix. Maybe a new drive band is in order. Got my first Hitachi. It's interesting. It's very plain on the outside. And this was the one that people have been having a hard time getting into. And it looks like there's somebody who was trying to claw it open. But something else that I just noticed is this is filthy inside. So dusty. So I'm gonna go take care of that in just a second here. I didn't want to use up any more of my canned air for big jobs like this, so I called in the big guns. If you have access to an air compressor, I would highly recommend using it to blow out these units. Just make sure you're downwind so the dust doesn't go into your mouth. It's looking way better afterwards, so now that we're getting into spring summertime, I think I'm going to be using the air compressor much more. But as expected, the inside of the drive is dirty as well. I did a quick cleaning of everything and swapped out the drive band too. It had the classic egg shape of a worn out belt, and I swapped it for a new one that seemed to make it run much smoother. It's now working great, and I tossed my test copy of Halo in just to make sure everything else was good. And it was. Another one fixed. Alright, so here's all 4 that I got fixed up. Now I just need to get them cleaned so that I can get them online. Let me just do this. Alright, got them all cleaned up. So this one's got a couple more scratches on it that I just can't seem to get out on the top here. But the rest of these actually ended up looking pretty nice. So I'm gonna get these listed and yeah, hopefully they'll get them sold. Great. Well, this one might be another easy one too. Well, this one looks like it's been opened before by Game Exchange. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see if they did anything inside. It's pretty dusty, so let me fix that real quick. Much better. The clock cap area is looking nasty, so let me rip that one out and clean it up before we get into the disk drive. Nasty. So this obviously had some similar issues before, since it has new seals added by Game Exchange, whoever that is. But I'm going to run through the usual process and open it up to do some cleaning first. The inside of the console was dirty, and I'm guessing the inside of the drive will be too. By the way, the bypass to open the Philips drives is on the left instead of the right, where the hole is on the Xbox housing. It's so confusing. The inside sure needs some cleaning, and another drive band to make sure that it's going for many years to come. I typically don't do this, but the laser eye has a lot of dust on it too, so I cleaned it off carefully with some Windex and a Q-tip. But I didn't notice any other major issues besides that, so I sealed it up and tested it again. Seems to be working well now, so it goes to show you that not all these repairs are really complex. Sometimes it just needs a good cleaning. One last Xbox fix for this month. This one has a bunch of problems, so let's dig into it. First glance inside is not looking good. Seeing bulging caps right away is never a good sign. This one turned out to be the worst one yet. The inside is super dirty, almost all of the mainboard caps are bad, the clock cap has already popped and is leaking everywhere, and it has button issues, which most likely means it also has trace rot. This one's going to be rough, but first let's get rid of a majority of this dust so we can actually work. Much cleaner. Now we can get a better look at the main board close up. Man, that clock cap really went everywhere. These caps are bad, this single is bad, and the ones on the end by the CPU are bad too. Well, let's get to work cleaning up and removing the clock cap first, then we can see if it's damaged anything else when it bursts too. I used some of my new dental picks and a lot of Q-tips to clean everything, but what do you think? I think it looks a lot better now. Thankfully, the connections in this area all seem to be in good shape yet, and it really just needed some deep cleaning. Now on to some main board caps. I clipped off the legs again and once more tried to get the solder out of the holes, but still had a hard time. I've added the new solder flux, used the solder wick and the solder sucker, and still nothing has worked for some of these. So this is probably not the best way of doing it, but I got fed up with removing the solder and just left it to try something new. Can I just install the caps by heating the holes and shoving the legs through the solder instead of removing it? Short answer, yes. Do I like this method? No. I don't know if the board is just thicker or what, but my heat is cranked all the way up and I still have problems even doing it with this method. Maybe I need a hot air station? I've never worked with one of those before, but I feel like it would make this process a bit easier. but I finished the 3300 caps this way and moved on to the 1500s. These gave me the same issues as before, but I was able to get them all soldered in and they look great. Now on to looking for some trace rot. And a very short search later yielded this find. Of course it has trace rot. Why wouldn't it? This is in the exact same location as the others, so there must be an issue with the design or the operation to cause this to happen in the same spot every time. But good to know that it's not too hard to fix. I've fixed the trace, swapped in 6 all new caps, removed and cleaned the clock cap area, blew out all of the dust, so the only thing left to do is open up the disk drive. It needs a nice cleaning, and let's swap out the drive band because I'm sure it's all stretched out. So this unit has had the full once over. And it's testing good. The buttons work and the disk drive opens and closes nicely. It even plays games. Amazing. I'm calling this one officially done. Well, it still needs some cleaning on the outside, but you know what I mean. Moving on. So I was going back through some of my old stuff that I still have for sale in my eBay store and thought, why not add a black and white label to the James Bond 007 cartridge? It hasn't sold yet, and that at least makes it look a little bit better. Plus it's a free mini upgrade, which is even a better bonus. Speaking of mini upgrades, I have 4 Xbox 360 controllers that need some new thumbsticks and a whole lot of cleaning. It's a pretty easy process to swap these out as long as you have a security Torx bit to open the rear of the housing. If you want a full quick tutorial on these swaps, check out this video right here. But I was able to get through these pretty quickly and only spent about an hour cleaning and swapping out the sticks on these. 4 more items finished and ready to list online too. Over this weekend, I also took a trip to a flea market and happened to find another black Game Gear for only 10 bucks there. It was a sweet deal and it even had a game with it too. I also have 1 extra special unit that I've been wanting to fix up for some time too, so I might as well start working on more of these. I got in more of the surface mounted cap kits and dug right into fixing them up. Most of these boards were surprisingly clean compared to the previous units I've worked on, so that was at least nice. There was one that gave me some issues though. So I'm cleaning this board, and the corrosion is really bad on it, on each of the pads, which is going to take me a while in order to get those clean, but this little part just happened to fall off from right here. So that'll be kind of fun to put back on, considering it's very corroded as well. And yeah, we're gonna need to do a lot of work in order to get these pads suitable again for solder, so let's see. But this gave me a good opportunity to try out the fiberglass pen again. After using it several times now, I'm still not 100% sold that it's a go-to tool for removing corrosion and debris from pads. I'll keep trying it out since I have it available, but carefully scraping the top with a dental tool and some IPA works a lot better. Plus, I was able to get into all the nooks and crannies of the surrounding parts so that they can all be cleaned up too. After some painstakingly slow cleaning, I was able to get it cleaned up and ready for some new solder. I used extra flux to coat the areas that needed solder and pre-tinned these pads. Then added some more flux and dropped in the missing component to solder it back in place by carefully touching each of the pins. It attached well and it cleaned up the area with some IPA before moving on to the capacitor installs. Before I did, I saw another potential issue lower on this same board. It appears that one of the pads for C1 was completely removed and needs to be replaced. Or so I thought. I started to scrape away the solder mask on either side of the pad to have a solid bit to attach a patch to and realized that the pad was actually still there. As weird as this sounds, it looks like the solder was removed in a full sheet when I desoldered the old capacitor from the pad. The pad was very flat afterwards and I wrongly assumed it to be gone. Turns out it was there, but just very badly corroded underneath. I got all 4 Game Gears finished up and ready for testing. And the first one, of course, had a bad LCD. I couldn't see this before replacing the caps since the screen wouldn't even turn on, but it had a lot of missing pixels from its display. Probably the most I've ever seen actually. You can really see all of the issues when you turn down the brightness too. This one's bad, but I do have a replacement from BenBen that I bought for exactly this reason. I don't have time to change it out this month, but hopefully something to work on for next month. The other 3 units seemed to work well during testing, and that's when this unit crossed my mind because it too has a bad LCD screen. I've had this Coca-Cola unit for years, but never had an extra main board to swap into its housing. I just so happen to have an extra one because the black housing it's currently in is in really bad shape. This red Coca-Cola version is also not in the greatest of conditions, and I don't have the game to go with it either. But it is in much better shape than the black one, and it's a lot rarer too. In doing a quick search on console variations, it shows that only about an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 of these were ever made. Pretty awesome item that I'd love to get fixed up and back into circulation. But let's see the LCD first. When you turn the unit on, it just cycles through these colors on the LCD screen, and when you turn the brightness knob, it never displays any images. It's also pretty difficult to keep on since it has corrosion on the battery terminals too. So I'm going to start with fixing those first. I popped out 3 of the terminals to get them soaking in a baking soda vinegar bath while I worked on getting the last terminal cleaned in place. These single units are kind of a pain to remove from the housing, so I'll scrub it with a Q-tip and go back over it with a tool to remove any of the light corrosion. I finished cleaning up with some IPA before checking on the others still soaking. These look a lot better than before, and this method works really well for light corrosion. I popped them back into the housing before doing a quick test of the speaker and the button pads. So far it's working great, but I'd like to do a deeper cleaning to get it polished up. I made sure to clean all the buttons and pads and pop out the front screen protector to swap it as well. I cleaned off all the old screen parts and washed it up with some IPA to get any of the sticky bits left over. Then started the reassembly. I still have the original red battery covers for this unit too. I can't forget those. The LCD had a gross film on it that also got cleaned up too. And last but not least, I added back the original bubble version of the front screen protector. It still had some residue on it after removing the plastic coating, so I did a quick clean off camera and this is what we're left with. It looks way better than it did before, but some of the edges of the screen protector are bubbled a bit, which is slightly disappointing. I listed this one along with the other 2 black versions the following week and spent about 10 hours in total fixing these up. Now on to some sales before getting into the final monthly numbers. Hey, so I just sold another Xbox console. So this is not the one that sold. This is the one that sold, and I just forgot to film it. So this one has a dongle, it also had some replacement caps, and it also had a replacement band for its DVD drive, if I remember correctly too. And it had a nice controller and a hookup set with it too. So imagine that this is the one that was in this box in front of you. So sold for about 130 bucks and will be going out today. Excellent. Hey, just sold another Game Boy game for about 36 bucks. This Super Mario Brothers copy is in great shape. You can even see the little number there on the label. And it's got a replacement battery, so this one will be going out later today. Good deal. Hey, had another great weekend in sales. Sold this controller for about 18 bucks with the new thumbsticks. I really spent a lot of time cleaning this one just because it was pretty dirty. Still got some stains, but I sold it for 18 because it does have those stains, so that's cool. Oh, and it also has a replacement battery piece on the back there. And then I also sold both of these black Game Gears. One of them was 130 and the other one was 120 roughly. The one that was 120 had a missing pixel about right here and I believe right in the middle here. So a little bit of a discount there just because it isn't working perfectly and there's not much that you can do about it unless you replace the screen. So really great weekend, super happy about those sales, and moving on to some more. Alright, just sold another item. Got this Xbox 360 controller with the replaced thumbsticks and a replaced battery cover for about 25 bucks. This is probably going to be the last item sold for the month since we're in April 30th right now, but we'll see. Maybe there'll be something else. Well, it looks like I spoke too soon. This is the official last item sold of the month. An Xbox with the drive band pulley replaced and one of my repaired controllers added in with new cords for about 120 bucks. Awesome way to end it. I also hit an important milestone with YouTube this month. I'd like to thank everyone for subscribing to make this possible, and if you've made it this far in the video and you're not yet, please consider subscribing and clicking the like button so it spreads even further. Thank you again. Now let's see how long it takes to get to 5,000. I also ended up having a little extra time to fix a few more things, so I prepped 3 Game Gears for new cap installs next month. This is what 3 Game Gears worth of bad caps and other garbage looks like. Pretty crazy. But after finishing the prep on those, I was finally able to use the full hours for repairs this month. I just barely squeaked it out with 30.5 total hours, but I'm happy I was able to fix more of the random items I've had sitting around for a long time. I didn't have any crazy huge sales like last month, but that's okay. At least I got some more larger items finished up and continued to learn a lot in the process too. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next month with another update.